Well, I finally had enough of a day off that I decided that I would actually sit down and watch the Netflix Skull Island cartoon, the Kong cartoon that's meant to tie into the MonsterVerse. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the lore of the channel, I've had an on-again, off-again relationship with the MonsterVerse. My rundown of the films, Godzilla 2014 was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Uh, Kong Skull Island was serviceable. I wasn't in love with it, but I appreciated the fact that they weren't just trying to remake the original King Kong, because the original King Kong, which is one of my favorite movies, is already a perfect movie. And you can't remake a perfect movie and have it be any better. So, they tried something different with it and tied it in with this whole allegory about sort of um, America's wartime behavior in the lens of like Vietnam and all that sort of stuff. It was fun. King of the Monsters actually was my favorite MonsterVerse movie, still is. It's not any worse than any real Godzilla movie from Japan, and it's in fact better than many of them. And I thought it did a really good job of balancing the human action and the monster action, and tying that together. So what the humans do is actually what motivates what the monsters do, which is a nice change of pace from just like A plot B plot. So I thought King of the Monsters actually did really well. And then Godzilla vs. Kong, I did not like for myriad reasons. And I was done with the MonsterVerse after that. It's like two crappy movies, one okay movie, and one movie that's actually okay, and but it's pretty much self-contained. Like you could just watch King of the Monsters and be fine. I'm done with the MonsterVerse. But then I bought into the hype, and GXK Godzilla X Kong, I loved. I bought into the hype. I went to see it, and it was stupid, but it was like a fun stupid. So I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed my boy Scar King there. Um, it didn't have anything to say about the human condition or war or family or anything like that, but it did contribute a great villain to the Kong mythos. So that kind of redeemed the MonsterVerse for me. And since I'm now back on board with the MonsterVerse, I guess, I decided I would actually watch the Skull Island cartoon, which I did not do the first time around because it came out after GVK and I was done with the MonsterVerse at that point. Plus, Kong cartoons don't really resonate with me that strongly, which is weird because I like cartoons. I appreciate animation as a medium. I love old Disney. I love anime. But Kong cartoons have never really resonated that strongly with me. I don't know if it's just because it's missing the spectacle or whether they just tend to be poorly written and poorly made. If there was like a good, like a old school Disney quality King Kong cartoon, would I enjoy it? Maybe. The only exception right now is the King Kong show from the 1960s. That one has grown on me because I sort of look at it through the lens of like you're a kid in the 60s reading famous monsters of filmland, looking at these photos of Kong and stuff like that, and saying I wish I could meet Kong. If I met Kong, I wouldn't be one of the mean people. I would be one of the nice people. I would be Kong's friend, and we go on adventures together. And that's what the King Kong show is. Um, so I appreciate it a lot in that sort of context. So yeah, so a couple points against the Netflix Skull Island cartoon is that it's a MonsterVerse cartoon at a time when I was done with the MonsterVerse, and it's a Kong cartoon when I don't have high expectations for Kong cartoons. So what did I think of it? Well, glad you asked. Welcome to my channel. Um, why does it exist? That was the big question I came out of it with. Why does this show even exist? Um, because there's only two reasons for doing a show like this sort of prequel, midquel sort of show, which is that it either contributes to the mythology of the MonsterVerse, or it is just like a story about that has something profound to say about the human condition that just needs to be told, right? The Citizen Kane of Kong movies. And it doesn't do either one. So it contributes absolutely nothing to the MonsterVerse. Nothing whatsoever. Any sort of illusions it drops are inconsequential. So it has it discusses the idea briefly. It touches on very superficially the idea that Skull Island has a completely different ecosystem from anything that we know on Earth, and particularly that the life on it is like this hybrid of plant and animal. But it doesn't do anything with it. It doesn't say anything about it. It's just sort of like, there it is. Okay, move on. It mentions the Hollow Earth, but it doesn't do anything with it. Not that it even matters at this point. Like we've had two movies in the Hollow Earth now, so anything that this show could say about Hollow Earth is kind of inconsequential. Um, we have this temple that Kong lives in on Skull Mountain. There's finally a Skull Mountain in the MonsterVerse. We have this temple that has these reliefs of Kong fighting other monsters, but they don't explain anything about it. It doesn't do anything with it. It's just a set for Kong to be in. So why does it exist? And overall, keeping in mind that there's like no point to anything set on Skull Island anymore, because Skull Island is gone in the canon of the MonsterVerse, in the timeline of the MonsterVerse. Skull Island is gone. It's been destroyed, and now we're in Hollow Earth. So what we want to learn about is Hollow Earth. That's what's going to move the story forward. Looking at Skull Island is backtracking. Had this come out like after King of the Monsters, it would have felt a little fresher, because we hadn't been back to Skull Island yet. It would have been well placed there. Um, but afterwards, Skull Island's gone. We're in Hollow Earth now. So what does this matter? Nothing on Skull Island matters anymore. And that's harsh, because like as I was watching, it's like partway through, I was thinking, should this have been the movie that I wanted to have exist between um, Skull Island and Godzilla versus Kong? Because I was struck by the fact that like so much happens off screen between those two movies, right? Like if you read the novelization or whatever, I suppose it explains some of what happens, but like you jump from, you know, at the end of Kong Skull Island, there's Kong, he's on Skull Island, he's walking off into the sunset and whatever. And then you go to Godzilla versus Kong, and he's locked in this enclosure, and Skull Island is practically destroyed and getting more destroyed. They have to get him off the island because the island's disintegrating. And the Iwi are all dead, and Gia's the only one left. And it's just like, what happened in between these movies? And no, I'm not going to read a book, because anything not on screen is not canon anyways, and it'll get changed anyways. So whatever. That's homework. I want to do homework. Um, so there really needed to be a movie in there, sort of after King of the Monsters, another Kong movie, and then lead into Godzilla versus Kong. Regardless even of all the setup for Godzilla versus Kong they did in King of the Monsters that they didn't use in Godzilla versus Kong. I would have loved to have seen the movie that had Kong on Skull Island fighting off all the other monsters as they keep coming at him, and then for Godzilla to be the boss fight. That was what King of the Monsters was setting up. That's not what they did. So does this cartoon then fill in that gap? And so far, no, it does not. There's no monarch. Nothing they talk about on Skull Island matters. They don't do anything with it. They don't say anything about it. Maybe in the forthcoming seasons, because it does end on kind of a cliffhanger. In the forthcoming seasons, maybe they'll explore that stuff and tie it in more, and like maybe we'll see like Skull Island get destroyed, whatever the storm close in on it. Maybe we'll see the Iwi and them get annihilated. Not that I want to see that, but that's where the story goes. That's what we know happens. So will subsequent seasons lead up to that? I don't know. And maybe I can muster the curiosity to see if they'll do that, but then I'll just be annoyed if they don't, right? Like, oh, great, I wasted more of my life watching this cartoon that doesn't mean anything, doesn't go anywhere. So that's the first big, why does this movie exist? It doesn't add anything to the mythos of the MonsterVerse. So the only other justification for this show existing is that it just has a story that needs to be told, that's very profound and deep about the human condition, and it contributes something really profound to the overall Kong mythology. It doesn't do that either. Like nothing matters in this story. So the story is that you have these cryptid hunters who are not attached to Monarch at all. They're just freelance cryptid hunters. And first they come across this girl who has escaped from a band of mercenaries. And then they come across this giant squid monster thing, a kraken. And destroys their ship. They all end up on Skull Island. The story is basically just them. They have to reconnect and find each other across this island, and they have to fight off the Kraken thing. And I will say I appreciated that. I appreciated the characters and how they were characterized, and how they were all sort of sarcastic and self-aware. So, in a typical action movie, you have these dumb characters doing dumb things to move the plot along, and you're screaming at the screen like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you separating and going down the dark corridor by yourself?" These characters don't do stuff like that because they're very self-aware. It's like if they're thinking of a dumb idea, they know it's a dumb idea and they don't do it, or something like that, or they just say it's a dumb idea at least. Um, they're very self-aware and sarcastic about their relationships with each other and about the things going on and how crazy the situation they're in is. So I appreciated that much. That part was entertaining. That was probably the most entertaining actual part of it. Um, but the story itself, like there's no meat to it, and that might be by design. It might be designed for younger viewers, so it doesn't have some profound story about the human condition. It's just things that happen to move along an 8 episode piece of content for Netflix. Um, Inconsequential, utterly inconsequential bit of content. Um, which is it's what it is, right? It's just content. Nothing matters in it. Had it been a movie, it actually would have shortened it up considerably, which would have made it better because a lot of it does feel like filler, and especially considering that Kong doesn't even really appear until the last 2 episodes. One of which is a flashback to set up his vendetta with the Kraken, which is like not even a necessary plot point. It's like, yeah, they get Kong to fight the Kraken. Boom, great. Um, doesn't need a whole flashback about why he should be angry at the Kraken. But hey, at least Kong was in that episode, so that's nice. Part of me even wonders, like, if this was an entirely separate idea somebody had that they just plopped into the MonsterVerse so they needed content, and plopped into this cartoon. Because you could easily just change the ending and not have Kong in it at all. So it's like people wash up. Like, okay, this could be like a Jules Verne Mysterious Island, like a modern retelling of Mysterious Island. Jules Netflix presents Jules Verne's Mysterious Island, and it's just like these characters end up on this island. It's Kraken, right? It even has crabs on a beach. There you go. That's even a reference to the film from 1960. Like it could have been any story in any setting, and nothing matters in it, and it doesn't tie into the MonsterVerse. So why does this thing even exist? Um, so that is all rather unfortunate, I would say. Um, will I keep watching to see if it goes anywhere? If it actually does? Well, I'm not expecting it to say anything profound about the human condition, but does it actually tie into the MonsterVerse? Will it fill in that gap of time between Kong Skull Island and Godzilla vs. Kong? Maybe. We'll see. Maybe my curiosity will get the better of me and I'll watch the next season when it drops. But man, just nothing happens. There's no point to the show. So, um, if you have not watched it yet and you're like not a die-hard MonsterVerse fan, don't don't bother. Whatever, doesn't matter. Um, and that's all I have to say about it. Not the most exciting review, I'm afraid, but it is what it is, and I watched it, and now I'm making content for my YouTube. So there we go. Content begets content.